Hello, my name is Suzette Lee, and I am Associate Director and Teaching Artist at Synthase, an online school for music creators. And I just want to say that welcome to our Summer Music Showcase, and I hope you're enjoying this music you're about to hear.
Oh, hey, thanks, Susie. Hi, everyone. I'm Nate May. I'm the director of Synthase, and we're looking forward to hearing three groups of students at this summer's showcase. One is students from the Synthase Composers Academy, which is new this year. Second is our private students, the students from our private studios. And the third is students from the Synapse Violin Composition Workshop this summer. So stick around to hear all three types of music, some world premieres, and some really great stuff.
We started Synthase Composers Academy in April, and the Academy is a growing community of composers from all backgrounds and of all styles. The next two pieces you're going to hear are stylistically very different. The first piece is a Christian rock song written by Brennan and is recorded by him and his own band, The Heavenly Frontier. And the second piece is a violin and flute duet and is written by Mac, and it is for his wife Judy's birthday.
Try to take me down with stick and stone, with earthly weapons try to break my bones. Your eyes will dim so that you cannot see. It's not you, the Lord's calling me. The God of armies goes before me. He is my rock, He is my light. The God of armies, whoever loves me, my strength, my song, He is my The Lord's anointed ones are you and me. We slay our giants and we become kings. Don't ask for glory or those golden things. We'll ask for wisdom to God sing. The God of armies who goes before me. He is my rock, He is my light. God of armies, whoever loves me, my strength, my song, He is my rock. The God of armies goes before me, He is my rock, He is my light. God of armies, whoever loves me, my strength, my song, He is my God. You came from heaven to dwell on earth. No one has seen such a humble birth. They lay you down in a lowly manger. The Prince of Peace, God forever.
Daniel's first composition was premiered 1 year ago at last summer's showcase, and boy has he come a long way. Here and Nowhere strikes a delicate balance between giving us some of what we expect, some tonal melodies and chords, and an economical treatment of ideas, and some of the unexpected, keeping us on our toes rhythmically. This piece went through lots of iterations, and he used a programmer's approach to version control as he was making revisions, something to ask him about if you're curious.
What started as a study, a playground, from which to experiment with phrasing, this piece took on a life of its own. Regarding the apparent unorthodox chord patterns, being relatively new to performing on piano means that I find notes for any key by using tetrachord hand positions from music theory exercises. This was conceived and composed in A-flat minor, but transposed to G-sharp minor to be performed.
Arpon is a very passionate and self-motivated composer who started with Susie earlier this summer. The piece you'll hear is his first piece of music. He started it as soon as he had access to Soundtrap, and it just flows and evolves from there. Arpon is currently wrapping up his saxophone quartet and is about to make some samples with pipe organ. You should definitely stay on the lookout for his next piece.
Hello, my name is Arpon Vijay, and this is my song, Highlights. My inspiration for this piece came from pop music, which featured some of the same techniques I have used in this song. I wanted to experiment with triplets, and I wanted to make a song that had a light and happy mood. I was able to use 2 different melodies and ideas to make an upbeat song that I hope you will like. I would always play around with this melody on my piano, and I've finally made it into a song.
Gasper has never seen Ghostbusters, so his approach to crafting a story about fighting ghosts is a testament to his imagination. For this piece, we worked a lot on stitching together his ideas in order to build a journey of rising and falling energy that would do justice to the story in his head, which is a really hard thing to actually pull off. He did a fantastic job with it, so enjoy this alternate universe Ghostbusters.
Hi, my name is Gasper Avanesian, and I wrote a fun and exciting piece called Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters, to me, sounds like ghosts in a city having a war when Ghostbusters are trying to get them out of the city. I met many challenges, like finding the rhythm in certain measures. Here we go.
This year's Synapse workshop is centered around the violin, a very versatile instrument that's loved by people from both the folk world and the classical music background. We have 4 participants this year, and they worked with composer Dan Truman, who you will actually see very soon, violinist Leah Usher, and me, to create 4 brand new pieces for solo violin. I had a blast working with them in July, and I am a little bit sad waving goodbye to them, but for now, please enjoy those brand new pieces for violin.
Hello, my name is Holden Meyer. I'm here with the Synapse Workshop, a part of Synthase. Right now, I'm here talking with Dan Truman, who has been helping out with the workshop. So, Dan, how has your experience been so far working with the new composers of the Synapse Workshop?
It's been really fun. I've enjoyed it. I always find it interesting to meet new composers who I've had no contact with before, who are coming from totally different places and different starting points, and getting to know them a little bit. I've also been struck by the range of music that people are making, the aesthetic diversity and so on. So I'm enjoying that too.
What is one thing that you have taken away from the Synapse Workshop, and what is one thing that you would like to leave the cohort of writers with?
I think it's really important for people to be themselves and find themselves in music. For me, music has always been about a kind of discovery, and often surprising myself about the things that I'm drawn to, or the things that I make. I don't always have control over the things that I make. And I think that's an important thing to recognize. Sometimes you're working on something and it takes on a life of its own. And to make space for that and to see what you learn from that is a really important thing, I think, rather than, oh, this has to be all about me and my identity. It can instead be about something else that's emerging that you then learn from. And so that's true for me. And I think that's true for a lot of people, and something that's worth keeping in mind. And I think, in terms of my own takeaway, I could only get a little sliver of that sense over Zoom and so on. But already, even with this group of people, some of whom know each other, some of whom don't, you can see real differences in personal experiences and in terms of what individuals think is important. And to lean into that, but to also listen is really important.
Well, thank you so much. It has been really wonderful talking with you, Dan. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Have a wonderful day.
My pleasure, Holden. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Susie, and this is Holden over here. And Holden is our intern actually for this Synapse, and that's why I am interviewing Holden. Holden is the one who interviewed everybody else. Holden is a graduate of Elmhurst University with a bachelor's of music in music theory and composition. He's working in many fields, including chamber writing, percussion, songwriting, digital works, and much more. So, Holden, how's your experience at Synapse?
It's been a lot of stuff we never touched on at the university that I went to, especially working in the contemporary field, which is such a different world from so much of traditional classical music and even songwriting and jazz. It's this whole world that's based on these extended techniques, and especially working with solo violin, an instrument which I'm not well acquainted with as a trumpet player, and using all those extended techniques and diverting from traditional form and traditional structure and even traditional sound and combining that to still make music that still, follows the flow of music and still feels familiar.
I was just about to ask actually, like, how's your experience writing for solo violin? I guess you touched on that a little bit more. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally don't really write for solo anything ever. I mean, I've written a few concertos, but they're all accompanied. So not only working with contemporary solo violin, the most daunting word of that little 3-word statement is solo, because I'm so accustomed to working in a setting where, I'm focused on counterpoint between instruments or harmony and balance between instruments, and working on just how do I make this interesting with just one instrument having its own textures and its own melodic lines. And I hope I've done a decent job of that for my first swing at it. But it was a really fun challenge.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's a fun challenge, not like a painful challenge. Can you tell us a little bit more about the compositional process of your Synapse piece? And it's a really cool piece, actually. Just a little bit spoiler alert.
So this piece initially started in a kind of nebulous space where I wanted to play around the open A string, which is such a broad concept, and there's so much I can do with that. But to the point where there's so much I can do with that. Oh my God. And I ended up after one of the master classes with Leah Asher, taking some of the contemporary techniques she shared with us and nailing down a concept of moving from this very pretty sonorous sound to this really harsh and ugly space, and not quite atonal, but venturing away from our 12-tone space. And last week, while I was putting some of the finishing touches on the outline of my piece, I went to the Art Institute of Chicago, where they have Georgia O'Keeffe's entire New Yorks on display, which is a whole series she did sort of in the middle of her career after she had reached a point of popularity. She was living in, I believe, Arizona. A lot of her art centered around femininity and nature or natural forms, and coming at that from angles of abstract and traditional. And she didn't want to do that. She wanted to move away from that. She wanted to set herself apart. So she moved to New York and started painting New York, traditionally and abstractly. She has this series of 4 paintings. Now, my piece has 4 sections. So I saw that and I went, it was 4 canvases lined up on a wall, all done in black and white, all with abstract forms and shapes. But in these shapes, you could see, one was softer and sweeter, and one was angular and harsh, and one was dramatic and swelling. And I took a picture of each one of these and took them back to where I was working, assigned them to each section, and with that, developed those sections much more and gave them much more of an identity than they had previously had, and ended up winding them together in a way that, not to speak on her part, but my attempt to kind of capture Georgia O'Keeffe's transition and reconciliation with the bustle of an urban environment in stark comparison to the quiet of her previous home.
Well, now this is Holden's piece. I guess, audience, you get to be the judge whether he captured the essence of Georgia O'Keeffe's art or not.
Hello, I'm Holden Meyer from the Synapse Workshop of Synthase, here with Lola Frost. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. So more on that solo violin front and developing that soundscape with just one instrument. What challenges have you faced, especially moving into a more contemporary space with this workshop and also tackling solo string?
My biggest challenge is developing ideas after I've come up with them. And I think that's especially true with a solo instrument because you don't really, I mean, you have like double stops and stuff, but a lot of the time you don't really have like a harmony that you can build. I feel like that's a big thing. You have to find a lot of different sounds. You use a lot of different extended techniques than you probably would with like a chamber piece or a large ensemble piece. Yeah, and figuring out how to notate that stuff is hard, and like notate exactly what you want on the page is always a challenge.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, well, through challenging notation, through developing concepts, tell me about the piece you did end up developing.
Whenever I start a piece, I always write down like a whole bunch of ideas. I write really programmatically a lot of the time, so I'll just keep like a list in my journal. Like, I'm pretty sure sweet potatoes growing in the ground is a sentence that I've written down before as a concept.
Well, hey, it's something.
Yeah, but I'll just like write a whole bunch of different concepts down. And for this, I had a lot of different things in my mind. I wrote down like dragon and like dirt and like stuff like that. But I kind of landed on like a mermaid kind of siren song kind of idea. It's interesting because originally, like, I approached it very melodically. In developing the piece, I ended up kind of veering away from it and like putting it in a different perspective. Susie kind of challenged me to like think about the different perspectives, and because originally I was going to write it from the point of view of a sailor, but I kind of shifted that and wrote it from the point of view of the siren instead. And so that's where you get all these sounds coming in, because like maybe the sailor doesn't really hear all those crazy sounds. They just hear like a beautiful melody luring them to their death, but the siren actually hears all this like screeching like kind of thing. And that like I came at it from a different point of view than I normally do. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, can't wait to hear it. Sounds
Sick.
like it's a real fun piece.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Lola.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Your time is greatly appreciated. Hello, I'm Holden Meyer. I'm here with Matt Smith for the Synapse Workshop. How you doing, Matt?
Doing good. Thanks for having me here.
How has your experience been with the solo violin aspect of it? I know you're not primarily a string writer.
I've written for piano trio and string trio in the past and never had really considered writing for a solo violin. So when I saw the opportunity come up, I went ahead and jumped on it. It's like, I've worked with violin as a part of a small group. Let's kind of look more into it and work on it as a solo. And I think even with just that slight background of these like small things to keep in mind with violin, I've been able to kind of develop and branch out, dive deeper into more of what's technically like capable of it, and like how many different sounds you're able to get out of it. A lot to learn, a lot to remember. It's just been an overall really good experience.
Awesome. So tell me more about your piece, Useless Box, correct?
Yes.
Where did you draw inspiration for that?
I was originally bouncing between two ideas. One was like writing a piece rolling kind of around the number 3. So you'll see a lot of like ideas around it being like stuff happening. Some stuff happens in like patterns of 3. There's a lot of triplet parts that are written down. And then it was also kind of exploring more options as I was in the early phases. And I was like, in conversation with Susie, was brought up like, oh yeah, I also like experiment with the idea of like the useless box, which is just a machine where it's like you hit the switch, a little robot arm comes out and just turns the switch off. That's all it is. It's like sometimes it brings up that philosophical question of like, is it useless? Like, is it a useless box? Does it serve a purpose? As well as like it's also just perceived as like a toy. If something is just like entertaining, it's like, oh yes, it's a funny idea. Eventually bought fully into that, and you'll just kind of see this battle of like, is this like a person that goes up to it and is like full of curiosity about like, oh, what does this do? And it's kind of like interacting with it in certain ways, different sounds, different techniques. Eventually locking into like, oh, this is how it functions. Flying with it, pushing it to its limits, and all of a sudden it breaks. And then the person's just left like, oh, it's broken.
Fun.
And then it's just like, oh, does it still work? No, it doesn't still work. And now I'm sad. And then it kind of ends with like well, I guess I'll just get another one kind of feel to it. And it's just kind of like, I guess it's programmatic in that sense, but most of it was just like part of the writing too. It's just like having fun with it, trying it out and seeing like, starting in a direction, where does my curiosity take me with where the story goes, the story that I just kind of made up.
Yeah,
that's about the core of it.
Well, awesome, man. Really look forward to hearing your piece.
Yeah.
It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, it's great talking with you too.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching this summer showcase. We do still have spots in the Synthase Composers Academy and our private studio, so we hope you'll join us.
Well, please like and subscribe to our channel for more. And we are currently doing a live stream every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel. Come and hang out. Furthermore, if you want, you can also send your music to receive live feedback. And yeah, so drop by and thanks for being here. Bye.